What's happening, folks? Sean the Average Angler coming back at you with another one of our spring lures to throw. We're going to get a little more in depth. We're going to do moving baits today. Now, we did the glide baits yesterday. Today's going to be moving baits. So we're basically going to cover the ones I talked about in the natural lake. Because quite honestly, I think they're more fun to fish because you really get to target shallower stuff. And I know there's a lot of you that go to Clear Lake, and I think there's a lot of just shallow anglers. Anyway, I am feeling better, but I got a little winded there. Let's start with the good old chatterbait. Okay, we all know, I'm not giving you no secrets here, that the chatterbait is an awesome early spring to springtime bait, and then post-spawn. But let's cover the now. Now, depending on watercolor, I'm going to be going with something, as you guys know. Let me open this because you can't really see it very well. And I got my box right here and don't see one of these in it. This one is the Fire Craw. Okay, so we got some dark red with black on top. We got the kind of orange on the bottom. That is a jackhammer, as you saw. The next one is an Evo, which is orange on the bottom with that orange blade, but then it's got green pumpkin on top. A little brighter than the Fire Craw in some ways, mostly because of the blade. And then I have this dark red and black on the bottom and green pumpkin on top. I'm going to go with that green pumpkin and dark red to start in average watercolor. As the water gets more stained, I will probably get a little bit more bright and bold, so that Fire Craw would be next. And you could tone it down with using like a green pumpkin trailer. And then this would be for the dirtiest water. Keep in mind, this is a general rule of thumb and a starting spot, because on any given day, they could just be keyed in on one of those. So if you're catching some on something, don't be afraid to change just to see. Maybe they'll eat the other one better, maybe they won't, and you can get it out of your mind either way. Now here's one that I will mix in, and that is, I believe this is Bee Height Delight, right? Green pumpkin on top, some chartreuse and shad color on the bottom. A little more subtle and color to add to that other one that I'm going to throw. And I brought the rod over because I didn't want to have to find the trailers again. And that is the straight green pumpkin. Just a plain green pumpkin. And that is my 5.5 inch Yamamoto Swim and Senko, where I cut it down. Remember, I like to cut that down to where this notch, there's a notch right there, you see it? It's just behind the hook. If you don't cut it down, it's really too long. But the reason I like this is it wags really wide, gives them something they don't see a lot in the realm of trailers, but it also allows you to slow it down quite a bit. And if you've watched any of my other chatterbait videos, you'll know that I pretty much almost exclusively, I do have some 3/8, but I almost exclusively fish with a 1/2 ounce. As far as trailers go on these, I'm going to be using basically what you saw. I will add, a couple different options to go with on there. One is that Z-Man Fire Craw razor shad, and you'll see it sticks out about like so. So I might cut off a little of that head just to shorten the package a little bit. The other option along that same line is the Z-Man Chatter Spike, which you see here. And I'm gonna do the same thing with that. I'm gonna wanna shorten it down. I just want a more compact, something more like that. So probably about a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch shorter on both of those. Those are the other ones I'll use. Zaku, you know, any of those types of things. They're all essentially the same to me. The Z-Man, at least it's a Laztec, and it's not going to tear up. I really like the Swimmin' Senko. If I can match a color with it, I will. I could also use that green pumpkin watermelon Swimmin' Senko and put it on any of these. Okay, it'll match up with any of these. Don't feel like you have to have an exact match. And if you need to tone down the boldness, you can always go to a more subtle trailer to help blend in. So where are we gonna fish these baits? Around cover, silly. That's the idea of fishing shallow. Essentially, now remember this, winter and summer, you'll generally find the fish in the same haunts. And then again, spring and fall. So those places we were fishing for the bass in fall, flats near drops, those kinds of things. Like to get up into those shallow areas where they're going to spawn, because before they spawn, they will also use those as feeding areas, especially if they're close to deeper water. Now, most of your bigger fish are going to typically spawn in areas that are closer to deeper water. That's generally where they live. They don't want to go cruising miles and miles and miles to get to where they're spawning and then leave. They want to get out there and recover. So they're doing the same thing when they're coming in. They're generally not migrating long distance once they're getting into that shallow water. The chatterbait is a phenomenal bait for probing that shallow water. If you get a day that is slicked off, I mean, it's slick, calm, right? Sometimes bladed baits aren't the best. Not saying they don't work, because sometimes they do. But if you find they're not working, then a good bait to try in that case, I like the Lucky Craft BDS series, which I'm going to show you what it sounds. It stands for Big Daddy Strike. I actually found one of my BDS that says that on the back. These it doesn't. These are different generations. This is a BDS 3, BDS 4. You'll see it's a little bit wider. Okay, the lip's bigger. It's a heavier bait. Different generations as well. I have quite a few generations of the BDS 3. This was another one that at one time had the claws on the lip. I'm not really sure if there was changes made. This is a little bit different color. I wouldn't overthink it too much. They eat all of them. The BDS is just a really good springtime bait for some reason. I don't really have an explanation for you other than that I can tell you from experience that in my lakes and the Delta, they can be very, very good, okay? To rehash, we can cover those same areas on slicked off days with a squarebill type crankbait. Those are pretty much shallow. The chatterbait, you can fish down a little deeper if you wanted to. I generally like to throw that around where the cover was. Maybe it's not now because the weeds have died off through the winter, haven't started growing yet, but that's where I like to fish it. For getting a little deeper, I really like that LB 500. And again, we're gonna be in that red, right? This is called Spring Craw. That is 3/4 of an ounce, okay? So it's gonna get down there pretty good. And you're just gonna have to experiment with retrieves. If it's real early, the water's still cool, then you may want to yo-yo. And yo-yo, not aggressive. And then maybe get a little more aggressive until you figure out what the strike is. The other thing you can do is let it get to bottom and then slow roll it a bit and then kill it. Slow roll it a bit and kill it until you figure out what they want. Oftentimes just a steady retrieve tends to work pretty well, especially if you're fishing over shallower water, like where you're gonna throw the chatterbait. And a sleeper color I like to throw this time of year is that black and gold. That's a Strike King red-eyed shad. Don't sleep on black and gold. Black and gold can be really, really good. Again, it's one of those things that sometimes they'll really be on it, and when they are, you'll know it. But you can fish the rattle baits down to 20 feet. You could fish them deeper. I really don't see a need to go deeper than like 16 foot. From here moving forward, we're only a week away from being into March. So keep that in mind. These fish are going to start moving towards getting ready to spawn. Nature is going to call them shallower. These are great search baits. Okay, they can put winning weights in the boat, but they're also great search baits to help you locate where the fish are staged. And then you can slow down with some of those other baits that we've mentioned, things like jigs, Senkos, shaky head, or a drop shot if you're a drop shot guy. Okay, I'm Sean, the Average Angler. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I am feeling a bit better. My oxygen's higher, as you could tell when I got winded in the beginning. I am still not 100%, but we are improving. Thanks. Like, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.